All right, everybody, thanks for joining us with Literacy to Liberty for our introductory lecture series. We have Danny Harper here, who is my, for no other better way to put it, fellow shitposting friend on Facebook. So Danny and I met each other a few months ago, and I found him very inspirational because he does some side things that are a little bit more agorist than the average person, and I enjoy that. He does run Black Pegasus Group. I've got his shirt on right now. All right, so shout out to Black Pegasus Group. Danny is a father and a veteran. He is a landlord and he is for liberty. And he is a future ancestor, which I love. I love it. So Danny is a very interesting character in regards to the liberty movement. I think he has a lot to offer because he takes personal liberty from the perspective of health, finances, and just general overall research, personal research. One of the things that I admire about Danny is that he's constantly doing research and sharing it, but he does it in a shitposting way because nobody likes a bleeding heart liberal. All right. So some of the things that Danny talks on is like what people are made of, for example, right, Danny? You had this post the other day. People are made primarily of soybean oil. You want to get into that a little bit?
Well, okay. So first off, let me just start, Rachel, with saying thank you for having me on. I appreciate you for encouraging me to do this because I told a few people that you really are the reason why I'm even here, because I initially respectfully, I don't want to say decline, but said I don't really know if I have much to share. I don't hold myself in that high of regard to think that anyone would want to listen to me. But here we are. So hopefully I can provide some interesting insights on the topics you have for me. But to go back to your question or statement, it really was just talking about not just that, but the makeup of the food that we're eating now and the effect that it's having on us. And sometimes as you mentioned before, I'll present information in a way in which it might, irritate or grab your attention, but it's intentional.
Yes, and it's because you care. It's honestly because you care. You want other people to be aware of it. And most people ignore somebody going, oh, your food's poison. Please stop doing that.
No.
So, you gotta, for no better words, bitch slap them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have a background in sales. I've been in sales for like 10 plus years. You know what I mean? And it's not just enough. And politicians, I think, understand this as well as, marketers. It's not just enough to give the information. You have to give it in a way that kind of grabs people's attention and entices them. That's why, no disrespect to anyone who might have Apple products, but they're not revolutionary. You know what I mean? There's tons of other products that will do what Apple products do just as well, if not better. But their marketing is superb, and now they have a stranglehold on a major percentage of the market, and that's not going anywhere anytime soon because their marketing is awesome. So it's not just enough to present the information; you have to present it in a way that is interesting to people. Presentation matters.
Yes. One of the things that I found very valuable throughout my studies is learning who your audience is. Because if you are not speaking to your audience in a way that they feel that they can connect with you, you will lose their attention, particularly in this modern day and age.
Yeah.
So I've always looked at who is my audience, who am I looking to grab attention to here today. For example, I'm looking to grab people who are like, what do other people have to say about liberty right now? you know? Because I
Mhm.
notice you're so disjointed in the liberty community. Some of that may even be my own personal faults. Okay. And it is what it is because I don't tolerate bullies.
Right.
Okay. Like, not, it's one thing to grab people's attention, but it's another one to try and, like, you better get underneath my thumb. I don't
But
deal
look,
with that.
let me say something that you mentioned that when I do speak on something publicly, despite what it may appear, I do think, will this hurt more? Okay, how do I word this? Will this do more harm than good? I,
Yes.
you will not catch me saying anything. Now, I may say something that might irritate you or offend you,
Hmm.
but I will not do that. I'm not, that's not my goal.
Right. Your
You-
goal is to grab their attention with an interesting fact that may offend them. It may offend them. I mean, the fact that we are made of 60% soybean oil, okay? That, if you're made of soybean oil, shit, I'd be offended if somebody said that to me, you
But,
know? I mean,
but
straight up.
there's a percentage of people who will look at that and be like, okay, I didn't know that. Let me start reading ingredients. Maybe I don't need to be eating X, Y, and Z. Or uh, I've had this too, because people will message me about a couple of different things. But, I've had a message before where someone will say, oh, wow, I didn't realize that my acne could have been traced back to this, but you said this kind of in a funny manner, something along the lines of,
Yeah.
you say water doesn't taste like anything and drink milk, but wonder why you have adolescent acne. And that
Yeah.
and that's someone sent me a message about that. Like, you know what? I'm gonna look into that. I'm not saying this with the intention of hurting anyone. There's been plenty of times where I've typed something, I'm like, this will do more harm than good. Not gonna say it. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, let's rewind now. All right. Let's rewind. You got
Okay.
you got adolescent acne from milk.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Why?
So a couple of different reasons, but mainly because of the way in which we get it. Like the source is not, it's not, it's been treated with too many things.
It's been
And
treated with a lot of stuff.
a lot of stuff. And you may just not be like, I'm lactose intolerant. I have no business drinking milk at all. Now, also, I know because I still
Milk
drink
is for babies, everybody.
milk.
Milk is
I
for
still
babies.
I still drink milk, but it's
I
lactose
do. I
free.
still drink milk, but
It,
it's not nearly as much as it used to be.
yeah, and it's the milk that I drink is lactose free. Also, understand I do things every day like your average person that I know I shouldn't do.
Oh yeah.
But
Absolutely.
it's about mitigating those things. And I also am a firm believer that, listen, whatever with that. I mean, that's arguable. But uh it's
For
also
anybody who didn't see, I waved my little vaporizer around.
I, I also say that um my good habits insulate me from my bad habits.
Absolutely.
You're not going
I-
to eliminate bad habits altogether. Like I love eating. I
I've
love
seen
eating.
it. I've seen it. Oh my
I
god.
love eating. Like there are
You're
some
like,
like
Jess is over here eating her vegetables, and you literally have 12 plates around you. It's like,
listen,
holy
I
shit.
got my pancakes, I got my two steaks, I got my this, my bacon, my that.
I
But
wanted to be mistaken about the two steaks. That's why I didn't say anything, but I
no,
literally was going to call you
no,
out on it.
no. But I really love eating. You know what I mean? So I mitigate that by being in the gym. And then there's certain things I won't eat. Like I'm not really too keen on sweets. I don't drink anything other than black coffee, water, and milk.
Mhm.
But so you kind of just you try to insulate yourself from the bad habits which are inevitable, and do good when you can. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
like if you know if you know that you like to spend money, right? It may be in your best interest to earn it. If
Yes.
if you know, and it's about being honest with yourself.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
if you know in your heart, you're like, listen, forget that frugal stuff. I want a Benz and I want a nice house. Like it's okay. You can be
Yes,
honest, but you it would
you should
probably
be
be
earning that.
you
Yeah,
you might want to kind of focus on getting money, and you still need to be responsible with your money. You don't want these things to like be a detriment to your life. Like if
absolutely.
a doctor told me tomorrow, hey, stop eating bacon or this is going to happen, bacon's out. Like it's not going to
Oh,
be.
well, no, not for me, you
Oh my
see.
god.
I'm very much against the standard American medical field. So I'm not sure if we have time to discuss that today, but I do have a 1 in 16 billion, 1 in 16 billion with a B anomaly of my kidneys. I have something
What?
called renal divisum. So I have an apricot seed sized kidney inside of another kidney. And it caused me a whole shit ton of trouble. Namely, I lost all of my 20s. Everything that I had worked for in my life was ripped away from me. And then by the end, doctors were actually poisoning me purposefully, okay,
No.
to kill me. I
No.
was running with 34% kidney function. My kidneys were, in fact, failing. When I tried to get help for this from my general physician, I was sent to pain management. Pain management for kidney failure essentially would have killed me within weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. From the
Yeah.
narcotics. Your kidneys cannot filter narcotics very well. Okay. And with failing kidneys, you just swiftly pass away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, luckily for me, I pled with the pain management doctor and begged him, please, like, I don't want to die. Like, I know that something is going on with my kidneys. Here is the information. And he said, yes. And also, you are being poisoned with your prescriptions. Yes. Okay. They had given me hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis, which is a very nice way of saying they gave me chloride poisoning from the additives in my potassium that they had prescribed to me.
Now,
Okay.
how long were you on that medication? Like how
On
long?
that medication for 2 years.
2 years? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
So it eventually caused acute kidney failures to the point of chronic kidney failure, and they were poisoning me systemically.
So
Okay.
yeah, I understand your distrust.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
Beyond that, my general physician refused to give me a referral to the Mayo Clinic for 3 more weeks after I confronted her with this information, and the pain management doctor had given a referral back to the Mayo Clinic. And I had to essentially threaten her with a lawsuit to the point where she said, fine, I will give you your referral to the Mayo Clinic, but you are fired as a patient. Okay. And
You
all
can
of
be
this
fired as a
happened. Yeah.
patient?
Yes. Oh,
I
yes,
didn't even know
absolutely.
that.
I've been fired as a patient multiple times for being combative, but you have to imagine I was saving my own life, and I did save my own life. My mother is a surgical nurse.
Okay.
Okay, she's a surgical nurse, and she has been in the medical field for a very long time, and so she is the singular person that I can thank for saving my life upon finding out that my potassium prescription was in fact killing me. Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
she figured out the natural way for me to cleanse from that and also to keep my potassium levels high enough where my kidneys didn't fail and I died.
Was this a natural remedy or?
It was. So for
Okay.
18 days, literally all I consumed was watermelon and baking soda water. Okay.
Mm.
Watermelon has potassium phosphate in it, which is a naturally occurring potassium instead of potassium chloride, which is a prescription.
Okay.
And then baking soda is a highly alkalizing agent, and it caused my blood levels, my pH, metabolic pH, to actually go from acidic to alkaline. So
Okay.
I no longer was starving to death, because whenever I ate, I would throw up. It was horrifying. So that took 18 days. Okay. And by day 18, I was pretty fucking sick of watermelon, dude. Uh, so I ended up, adding like green drinks to it. But it was getting to the point where I couldn't actually eat. Like my body was absolutely refusing to accept food,
Yeah.
other than these things, small amounts of these things. So my family kind of freaked out, and my dad had me go down to Mississippi, where he fed me things directly from his garden.
Okay.
Okay. And I
Yeah.
started to get my appetite back after about 10 days. And then I went up to my mom and she was like, fuck this shit, because I had been a large girl my entire life. Okay. So whatever caused that hormonally, and then kidney issues on top of that. So I went from, in less than 18 months, I went from a size 18 to a size 10 to a size 0.
Mm. Get out of
Okay.
here.
Yeah. So in 3 months, I went from a size 10 to a size 0. 3 months. Okay. So I was skeletal. And my mom freaked out and she literally was like, no, and was feeding me Laffy Taffy and soda and bacon. That year for Christmas, I got 8 pounds of bacon. She's Merry Christmas.
Stop
You
it.
know, yeah, yeah, so that it has been an interesting ride, but
Yeah.
that started me personally, that started my background into being a medical advocate. I've been a medical activist for a decade. Okay, because I've been through it. I know about doctors' malfeasance and malpractice.
Mhm.
I usually just say it's malfeasance because doctors absolutely know what they're doing when they're trying to kill you. Okay. So when I watch all of this happen with the COVID, for example, I'm
Right.
literally watching them commit genocide. They kill 300,000 people a year before this. Through malpractice and malfeasance is the third leading cause of death in the country.
When I saw that stat, because that was some years ago, where I said,
Mhm.
I had no idea it was that high.
Yeah, this was
No
years.
idea.
This was years after I found out what was wrong with me. The Mayo Clinic luckily was able to diagnose me completely, and so I've been able to live a very normal life since then.
Mm.
Very normal, like so normal and boring that you really wouldn't actually want to watch me regular day to day.
I can relate to that. I'm very routine and boring,
Okay. Yeah.
so
No,
I get it.
I like it like that. My
Yeah.
life is like that.
Well, routine is good. Routine, and I've said this before. There's two things that came to mind when you were talking about what you went through. Uh, the first is you were talking about everything that you went through with the medical system, and that is one of the reasons why fitness is so important to me. The reason why, to me, it aligns with freedom is because freedom to me means having options. It doesn't necessarily mean doing whatever you want, but it means that someone else doesn't get to dictate the outcome, and it gives you choices. Now you can't do, they say you can do anything you want, but not everything you want. It's not possible to do everything that you want. We have one life, a finite amount of energy, resources, time, etc. Everyone has obligations, responsibilities, but when 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 you live, and it hurts my heart, some of the people who I know are on a number of different medications. You know, they can't really do some of the activities that they want to do, and it's because of habits that they formed decades earlier that are starting to catch up with you. So now you don't even have, certain things are off limits to you. And you're at the mercy of a healthcare system that is a mess, an absolute mess. Now, I'm not saying that because I've injured myself exercising, so I've lost money investing. Like, but this is not the, you don't that doesn't happen, and you just when you got into everyone probably has been in some type of fender bender if you've been driving long enough at least once. Did that make you say I'm never driving again? No,
I
you
know
just broke.
somebody, but yeah,
Listen, it
for the
happens.
most part, no.
For the most part, you're just like repair my car so I can get back on the
It could
road.
work. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, because I'm not jogging to work. So like,
Uh-huh.
it's like, all right, why would you eliminate your options by leading an unhealthy lifestyle? Because you get to a point where a doctor says, listen, you're so far gone, you have to take this medication to walk. And now you have to take this medication or you'll have back pain. And you'll have to take this medication to sleep. And oh, yeah, now you need this medication to counteract the medication that makes you go to sleep so that way you can have a normal heart rate during your awake hours. It's just the whole, why would you want to be subject to that when you could just,
Why would you want to be subjected to an entire eugenics program?
yeah, like, no,
Because like I just need to be realistic. That's what it is. The medicine that you're given, toxic. Okay. The x-rays that they take, toxic. It's all toxic, right? So when I was diagnosed, I was like, oh my God, freedom! Like
right.
this is not a joke. Like I went off the rails and
But,
like just
but,
freedom, freedom, freedom. And I am that way in regards to, medical freedom. That's
yeah,
your health. That is
yes,
the key to
you
it.
are the first line defense.
Yes, I am not on any prescription drugs. Should I be on prescription drugs according to doctors? Yes. Okay. I had, for the first time in 6 years, one acute kidney failure in January of this
Okay,
year.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
All right. For the first time in 6 years, still don't have a clear answer on why that happened. All right.
Mhm.
And so, again, I actually told everybody in my family, everybody who was really close to me, who knew that it had happened, I'm not getting dialysis. I'm not even going to the doctor to get my kidneys checked on. I know what happened. I've been through it hundreds of times. So I know what happened. I know what I need to do, and I know how to recover. I'm not involving doctors. And if I continue to have this happen, well, then it's my time to go. You
Mm.
know, I was born with this. I didn't know about it until I was 29. I have a short life to live. Okay. So I'm going to squeeze as much as I can out of it. Okay, so maybe now that people understand this background and know about it, because I haven't actually talked about it,
Yeah,
okay, publicly, in to this extent, like on video. Okay, so
right.
it's gonna be the first time. But maybe now that people understand my background, they understand maybe like my where I'm coming from in regards to my
Which is
hostility,
which
my
which is
peer
important.
pressure in this, you know?
Which is important. That's
Yeah.
important. But um, what you just mentioned, a key component in what you just mentioned.
Michael. Sorry, my 2-year-old opened the door.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
And
goodness.
that's a non sequitur right there. The kids are not allowed on the internet, not at all, not as pictures, nothing, I
I
don't see.
can't even blame you. I
Yeah,
can't like none of, I can't agree with that. Pardon, I can't disagree with that.
I was stalked. I've been
Hmm.
stalked before online. I've been doxxed countless times. I'm not putting my kids out for sale for that. That's not happening. So,
I
yep.
totally understand. I totally understand. I
So
get it.
that actually leads me to another question that I have for you.
What's that?
And that was on one of your posts that I found interesting and enlightening. And that is the one where you talk about how other people and the unhappiness from the world comes from people trying to force their happiness onto other people,
Yes.
their version
So,
of happiness.
yep, yep. So I think there's several different ways that people do this. You know, parents do it to their children sometimes, with goals that they didn't realize when they were their child's age. Like, you know, I wasn't able to pursue my career in sports, so now my focus is for you to focus on, you know, people do it politically, uh, trying to force your views on others. There's a few different ways that people do this, but I think that it ultimately leads to unhappiness, because you my version of happiness is not your version of happiness. Some of it may overlap, but as long as what you deem as your happiness, right? Whatever success and happiness and being content is for you, and happiness is not a constant state, but whatever is whatever makes you happy, whatever is success for you may not be the same for me. And as long as your version of it doesn't impede on my ability to pursue happiness and the best life that I can for myself, it should be of no consequence to me what your vision looks like, you
So
know?
I got a question. I got a follow-up question for
Okay,
that, because
okay.
I see this, right? With the world the way as split as it is right now, what do you say to somebody who says, if you're not vaccinated, you're impeding on my own pursuit of happiness? Well, what do you say to somebody about that?
So I'll preface this and any other question that I answer with, I don't have all the answers, right? I don't claim to be any kind of, even I love doing market research and sharing my trades and investing, but I deal in probabilities. I do not speak to anything with any level of certainty. And I think that people who do speak with in absolutes, you should be weary of.
Very
It's
weird.
it's one of my apprehensions with, I'll say, certain aspects of religion. I do not know anyone who has died for any length of time and returned and just, you know what I mean? Like, just return, like what, hey bro, you've been dead for 7 days. Like, what was it like? Like, I don't know anybody like that. So when you
It
speak,
actually happens pretty frequently, something along the lines of 60,000 people a year, something like that. It's a pretty large number. It's crazy. But anyway,
I'm not talking about you've been in a coma and on the brink of death. I'm talking about
no.
you began to decay and then you resurrect. Like, I
Are
don't
you
know.
talking about Jesus zombie?
I'm not talking about zombie Jesus at this moment, but you know, it's related. But no, I just so you asked me about, you know, people who may have been vaccinated, maybe feeling like the unvaccinated, you know, impede on their ability to pursue the best life possible. I disagree. I think that the point of I don't actually know the point of the vaccine. Uh, I don't know the mainstream points. But if the point of it was to, oh, we know what it is. But if the point was to protect you from the virus that was in existence months before they told you about it, then how are you any less safe for me not getting a vaccine if the vaccine protects you? Here, be confident in the decision that you made, but don't force that decision on me. You know,
Absolutely.
that,
So
and that goes across the
your
board.
personal happiness ends when you try to coerce
That's it.
somebody else to do something.
That's it. That's it. Like we talk about consent. Everyone understands consent, you know, from a sexual aspect, but you can literally just use it across the board.
across the board,
You
and
can
that's
use
exactly what
consent
it should be.
across the board. This
I
is why, like,
believe that that's called voluntarism.
correct. So
Okay.
you can just use consent across the board. Like, um, what's something I said? What did I say? I forgot what I said. I was going to share something that I said publicly, and I do not remember what it was. But it was kind of in line with that. Like, just don't force anything on anyone else. That's it. And that shouldn't even be a controversial thought.
Mhm.
Don't force anything on anyone else.
I know.
That's
That shouldn't be a
Are you
controversial thought,
serious?
okay? So here we are, all right? I've done my little introduction of you, and this is a little bit more of an unusual series that I'm doing here today, and Danny had asked me to do Q&A with him. Most of the lecturers have just been, you know, talking on their talking points, which I really enjoyed. But this has been a lot of fun. All right. So we're going to get into a bigger topic here,
Okay.
talking about consent. All right. You don't want to coerce people. Would you say that the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012, signed by Barack Obama, would you say that that is coercing people? What would you say about that?
Okay. So I don't. I was today years old when I learned about that. So
Awesome.
I just
Awesome.
I stumbled on that because I'm constantly like, you can't know everything.
Yeah.
You,
Okay. So just
you
to give a rundown on what this is, Barack
mhm.
Obama literally and essentially just signed an act that said, you know what? I'm actually going to let the media use propaganda in their news stories. That's essentially what it is. What it comes down to is it gives the United States media carte blanche to lie to the American public with an intended purpose on behalf of government.
Okay.
Okay. That's essentially the rundown. So the media
Well, you
is
know what?
officially the fourth branch of government.
Okay. Yes, that's a fact. Uh, but you know what? That does remove consent to a degree, because consent, I feel like, okay, so you should have the freedom to make an informed decision.
Correct.
All right. So I am in sales, right? I've been in sales since 2021. I've been in sales in some capacity for the past like 11 years. And something that's frowned upon, it's not right, is to give a person to withhold information from someone. Like, let's say let's say you sell something online, right? And you don't tell a person that when they make now, if you put it in the fine print or what have you, or you have a follow-up message that says, please read this, that's cool. But if you just outright don't tell a person that, hey, making this one purchase commits you to 20 other purchases of the same, and you just don't tell that person, and you find out when the money's going,
Yes.
you've just removed a person's ability to make an informed decision. People have a right to make an informed decision. Now it's on you, if we are living in a society in which you have to abide by consent across the board. It's on you now to convince me why I need this product, or why this is important, or why I should fund this, or why I should back this, or why I should support this. That's on
Likewise.
you.
Likewise, as a
Hmm.
consumer of information, it is also, I would say, your responsibility to be as informed as you can be.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So that when somebody comes up to you and says, buy my information, you can say, I've already done my research and here's the conflicting information.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I'm not
Yes.
interested, and here are the reasons why.
Also, because I know that it's not feasible for someone to know, there's so much I'm out of the loop of. Did I even say that correctly? But there's so much I'm not
Yeah.
aware of, and that I just like what you just brought up. That's been that's been a thing for what, a decade now, and I just found out about it today. Like,
I
but
mean, but
you should
look
have a
back on the
huh?
history. Look back on the history of the last 10 years and tell
Oh, it
yourself
makes sense.
it makes perfect
It makes
sense.
sense. But I think that how you can counteract this is by understanding that, you know what? I don't know everything. I don't have time to know everything. Whenever I'm given a piece of information, let me have a healthy uh, sense of skepticism and do my own independent research. You've seen on Black Pegasus Group, which, by the way, is an investment club that I host. I will share my trades. I don't speak in absolutes. As I said before, I say, hey, this might happen because of this, this, and this. But I also say, do your own due diligence. And I say it all the time. If I tell you something, like even if I'm having a conversation with you about X, Y, Z, what have you, I will say, look, don't take my word for it. I don't want you to.
Yes.
Because
I don't want you to.
and
I want you to be thinking for yourself.
another thing that people don't realize is, like, even when like, let's say, because before I even was, I've been trading for 4 years, and before, has it 3 or 4 years, 2021, 3 or 4 years, and before I even was, public about it, I would share my ideas with friends. And I don't want you to just agree with me. Look into what I'm doing, because you may catch something I didn't see. So maybe
I've
you can,
I've
you know what I
learned
mean?
so much. Yeah.
So maybe, like, if I say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this on this date because of this, don't just say, hey man, that's great. Don't jump in blindly with me. Like, check my work. I may have missed something. Like, did you realize, like, they were gonna, like, shut their doors indefinitely between X date and X date? Like, oh no, I didn't know that. Like, maybe I won't do this. So uh have a healthy sense of skepticism. Also, it's 2021. Like, if you don't know that the media and the government isn't always the most truthful with you, where you been? Like,
You know,
I could see maybe in 1993, but, like, come
I mean,
on.
honestly, this is where I'm at, where I'm totally gonna offend some people and I've lost friends over it, but I don't give a okay. So I can't just accept the fact that people are naive, that they haven't thought about what they're doing. You have, in fact, chosen a side. You know exactly what you're doing. That's it.
Some some people, yes, especially if they're in our age bracket, right?
Especially if they're in our age bracket.
But here's something. Here's a real hold on, let me cut something off. I'll be right back. Here's a real inconvenient truth for freedom, uh I guess, truth seekers and freedom minded people. Everybody doesn't want to be free.
That's right.
It's a terrible burden. Like, libertarians, right? Because if I had to choose a category, that's what I would be. Although I'm just someone who's for the maximum rights for the individual. Whatever
That's you.
category that puts me in is what it puts me in. But
I'm unaffiliated.
but a part of me wants the affiliation because it helps people, and I also think that, um, libertarianism is a good starting point. Libertarianism is a good starting point because it will wean you off of the thought that government should be as prevalent in your everyday life as it is now. It's a good starting point. But that aside, when I talk to people and when you share your ideas with people, you have to understand that it's a terrible, terrible burden to be absolutely free. It's a scary thought for a lot of people. People don't even want to be responsible for their own health. Like,
Absolutely.
some people want you don't want to have your be at the mercy of a hospital or the healthcare system. I don't want that. But there's some people who kind of do. And
There are some people who kind
they
of
have
do.
they've actually become the majority. There's some people who enjoy being afraid of something. There's people who enjoy being told what to
It's
think and
trendy.
feel.
It's
Huh?
actually really it's actually really trendy.
But
I've
imagine how
noticed
big of a
to
relief
talk.
that is.
Yeah, no,
I don't I
absolutely.
don't have to think about what, like, and
Listen,
no.
people are just as passionate about not being free as we are about being free. It's
Thank
just
you.
that simple. There's no way, this is the logic that a lot of libertarians fail to think about. They think that they're always going to be able to convince everybody at some point in time that freedom is going to happen, right? Even me in my trying to be as optimistic as I possibly can, even in my heart of hearts, I know it's not happening. It is not happening. There is a divide going on
Yes.
right now, and
Control.
those people are just as passionate about controlling us
Yep.
as we are about freeing ourselves from them.
Yes.
Okay. And so a real inconvenient truth would be some of those people don't even exist.
What do you mean?
So, some of those people who are trying to keep us from being free don't even actually exist. As you pointed out with your recent article, is the internet even real?
Oh my God.
60% of interactions on the internet are not real. They are run by bots, according to this scandalous,
Yep. You can
scandalous
actually,
media.
now I don't have
Are you
experience.
real?
I don't know.
Am I
Actually,
real?
I'm gonna be honest with you. This is probably a simulation.
Is this a
So
simulation to figure out who's going to be running the next intergalactic military? Is
who
this
knows?
is this
Who
is
knows?
this like Ender's Game? Have you ever seen that movie, Ender's Game?
I haven't.
Okay, it's about like a 13-year-old or something like that who gets sent off to this military school to quote unquote train to be a pilot. But in all actuality, his like training is actually real. It's real
Oh,
life. Yeah,
that
simulation.
sounds
Instead of
that sounds pretty
simulation, it's
interesting.
live action. And he thinks in his simulation that he defeats his enemy, when in all actuality it's real and he just blew up an entire planet as a 13-year-old.
That's
Okay,
crazy. Look,
it's crazy.
I'm gonna suggest a book. I'm gonna suggest a book to
We
people
all
right
know
now.
that when people ask for suggestions, we don't read it. But no,
This
go
is
ahead.
They're not asking me. This is an unsolicited suggestion here. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Biocentrism by Robert Lanza. Incredible book. Incredible
It's
book.
actually a good book. Like, I will be able to get through it because I did, and I wanted to show proof of this. The last time I asked somebody what I should read,
Uh-huh.
okay, this is what they
Okay.
suggested. They
Is that
suggested
book?
Code
Is that
Breaker.
is that
I
good?
made it. How far did I make it? I made it to page 16 of
Okay.
preface.
Not good? No.
Garbage. Straight up just trash. Okay.
Hey,
And
hey, look.
this is written by a New York Times best-selling author. It's just so amazing. But I could not read it because the propaganda was so thick. It was so thick, it was like turning on a TV for me. And I haven't watched a TV since 2013. I don't have
Wow.
TV here. I don't have Hulu. I don't have Amazon Prime. You can't hack me and find me like on Netflix. It's not a thing.
I'm gonna
I
send
don't
you a
have any
TV.
of that. My DVD player is from 2004. Okay? So like after my 7
I'm sending you a TV as soon as.
I have TV. I just don't have any networks or streaming or anything like that. I don't do nothing like that.
Look,
So I have DVDs that I watch like 10 minutes before I fall asleep at bedtime after I've worked my 17-hour days.
you're
You know
like
what I'm
me.
saying?
You're like me in the barracks when I was in the barracks in like '04. all I had was this TV with no channels, with the
Yep.
DVD and the VCR built inside of it.
Yep.
And the DVD broke, and I had the Happy Gilmore tape. I used to play it every day.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So this is how you know I'm backwoods. Okay. My dad lived 12 miles outside of town. My grandfather lived 9 miles outside of town. There was no such thing as TV. We had 3 channels, and we could call a hotline for downtown that would let us know the time and the weather and
Are
the
you
time of the sunset.
serious?
Okay. So I grew up on The Price is Right, The Heat in the Night.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Matlock. All
Yep.
right. And then just a few movies like The Mask. Okay.
Okay.
The
Oh my
Truman
goodness.
Show and Rain Man. And that's it. Okay. For my whole childhood, whenever I left Chicago, I'd go up to
Mm,
Chicago and I could watch whatever I
yeah,
wanted, but that
yeah,
was
yeah.
weeks on weeks of nothingness in which
Both
we all
sides.
played Monopoly, and I learned how to play poker when I was 7 and like all that stuff, you
Well,
know?
listen, I can't guarantee that anyone seeing this, yourself included, is going to love this book, but I call it the rich dad poor dad of quantum physics. And what I mean by that is, when you listen to these interviews, a lot of interviews from like real estate investors or just investors in any space or people who started businesses, the catalyst for a lot of them, including myself, was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So
Okay, okay.
I hope I pronounced his last name correctly. But that book is more like, it doesn't have any investing advice, but it's a mindset book. So a lot of people read that, and then it opens their mind up to, wow, I really need to figure out a way in which to detach my income from my time. That thought right there will kind of open up your world to, let me just look into this. Let me look into this. So Biocentrism by Robert Lanza. For one, it's a quick read. So that, like, Necronomicon you just held up there, it's not that thick. Like, it's a quick read. Like, props to you for even picking that up. But no, it's a quick read. I think that it's really, really interesting. People who I've suggested it to find it interesting. But in a nutshell, basically what it's about is, it's about it entertains the thought that um, what we are seeing is a realistic illusion. How things, how when you're not observing something, it's just an infinite number of possibilities, and your senses make sense of it while observing it. So the
Yeah,
reason, so it's like, well, why are we the perfect distance from the moon? Because we're looking for that. Well,
yeah,
why is this just so perfect for life? It's because we're looking for it. So the more you look for the answer, the
yeah.
world shapes itself to make sense, to a degree. To a
Sure,
degree. But yeah,
sure.
but
Like,
it's a really, really, I don't
are
want to butcher the
we
synopsis.
at the end of a military coup in the
I don't
US?
know. I don't
I
know,
mean,
Rachel.
you asked me to look for answers, and the more I look for answers, man, the more I'm like, oh shit, I am right. Like, this shit sucks. Like,
There was,
I
yeah,
don't
like,
want any more.
that's an interesting, I don't know really,
So
I
what do
don't know.
you think about that?
Well, I don't know how to make sense of it. Like, what what do you mean by that? Do you mean like military involvement in?
I mean that our entire world is currently being run by the US government, perhaps in partnership with other countries, conglomerates, groups, corporations.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure.
No, 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 no. I mean, really, really. I don't just mean like in the background. Yeah, they're going around doing some stuff. I mean, they have quite literally done a military coup on the citizens of the United States. Okay,
Mm.
so let's go back in some history. We just talked about how the internet, in fact, is not real. Okay, we've got 60% of internet traffic run by bots.
Right.
Do you know who invented the internet?
Was that the military, right?
It sure was.
Yeah, the
Okay, so
military.
it has been directly contributed to two individuals as their propaganda under the Smith-Mundt Act. Bob Kahn and Vint Cerf are attributed with the invention of the first schematics, i.e. IP addresses,
Hmm.
okay, of the internet in 1969, okay, under the direction of Department of Defense, DARPA, or the Defense Department's Advanced Research Projects Agency, okay? Having invented the prototype IP systems we use today to send node-to-node messages to computers from one computer to another. And this was known as ARPANET, or Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. Okay, so keeping in mind that the military specifically invented the internet, and
Mm.
60% of internet traffic is done through falsehood, through the idea of something that is real that is not. Okay, there are several military specialists in the history of mankind that have published essays on what military coups look like. Military coups do have specific points that they continuously follow throughout the history of mankind. So I'm going to go through a couple of these and we'll talk about them. Okay. So the first one is nobody ever says that it is in fact a coup.
So no one acknowledges it, basically.
Nobody acknowledges it. Unfortunately, at this point in time, somebody did slip up and say that they are in fact in a military live exercise in March of 2020. Would you like to see that clip?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see here. Is this the one? Yes. Okay. I'm going to share my screen here.
Okay.
Okay. Here is Mike Pompeo. He is talking about that there was some sort of virus happening in Wuhan, the coronavirus happening. He's talking about government involvement once they learned about the COVID outbreak. Okay, so this is after he is speaking at a press conference, and he is a Secretary of State. Okay, Mike Pompeo. He's being asked questions by journalists. As early as December, when did the CDC start letting other agencies know that there was something in China happening, that this coronavirus was happening? And then when did the whole government approach start to happen?
So I'll let the CDC or Dr. Fauci want to talk to that. Dr. Secretary Ansar, please.
Yeah. So we were alerted by some discussions that Dr. Redfield, the director of the CDC, had with Chinese colleagues on January 3rd. It's since been known that there may have been cases in December, not that we were alerted in December.
Excuse me, we'll do it in a second. Mike, yes. May I just say one more thing? There's been some discussion about China and what they knew and when they knew it, and I've been very critical. We need to know immediately. The world is entitled to know. The Chinese government was the first to know of this risk to the world, and that puts a special obligation to make sure that data gets to our scientists, our professionals. This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We need to make sure that even today.
Did you hear Donald Trump? You should have let us know. Okay.
Wait, when did he say that? Did I miss that?
Yes, let me go back. Listen right here at the end.
All right, okay.
Exercise here to get this right. We need to make sure that even today, that
Oh my.
You should have let us know. Okay. In this same press conference that's 3 minutes long, Mike Pompeo goes into detail about how we have to make sure, okay, how we have to make sure that what we are looking at in regards to the media is accurate. Okay, so he's making a plea to everybody to make sure to listen to the approved media.
Right. Don't do independent research. Don't jump off the deep end. Which,
Don't do anything. We've seen
right.
it. We've seen it, okay?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
this is the only guy who makes it known that we are in a live military exercise and that there is no going back. Okay? Now, back in January, when all of the insurrection, et cetera, was going on, there were actually generals that were interviewed, and I couldn't find that. But there was actually a very old general who had been involved with the military for some like 60 years. Okay. Our top generals have been in charge for decades. Okay. So
Mhm.
now we're thinking how terrible it is that Congress has there are like a vast majority of Congress has actually been in office longer than I've been alive. Okay.
When there's something to be said for how long you can be in power before it corrupts you.
Correct. Absolutely.
This is the importance of having terms, not to cut you off, but that's a really important note. It's
Absolutely.
because no one's impervious to the influence of having power.
In order to be in power here, I would go so far as to say that you have to sell out before you are even allowed to be in the public eye. You have to agree to the terms of whomever
Yeah.
is in charge.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's funny, just to add something real quick, the funny thing about being in power, especially in our government, such as like the position of president, right? In a weird way, the mere act of you pursuing it shows you aren't worthy of it.
Correct.
Because
Absolutely.
who in their right mind would want to be who who would want that position?
Well, if you've seen anything that I've written about or anything that I've talked about, you will know I completely agree with you. The Constitution itself is fraudulent. Therefore, any actors playing out on the Constitution are, in fact, fraudulent characters who have specifically chosen to be fraudulent in their actions. So I couldn't agree with you anymore. Okay, so here we are, and so nobody ever says that it's a coup. All right. They just close everything down and move their troops into the state that they're taking over. Okay. And so to quote Alex Shipp, who I believe is a mutual friend of ours, I'm not sure, I shared it and you commented. But to quote him, he says, as ex-Marine, it's really creepy to be walking around and seeing the US military walking around cities, administering gene modification therapies as vaccines in 7-Elevens and shit to build out biometric identities for biodigital convergence. Okay. Now we have to keep in mind, back when all of this was happening last March, okay, they had the National Guard out for testing sites, and they were going around and shutting down towns. Rumors were like, yeah, they've come through the town and they're shutting down businesses, and they stopped that once word got around. But it happened out here. It happened out here in some of the mountain towns. They shut down towns. They literally shut down the roads, and you were not allowed to come in. Okay. So it was insane what they were doing. And this is generally how you see the because when you go through a military coup, you actually there's evidence of it afterwards.
I got
They
you.
swiftly. And so
Right.
historians and people who have seen these coups, they can write about these are the actions that they're taking. Okay.
Yeah.
And we know as an army that is well trained in nation building and going in and throwing over, dictatorships.
Absolutely.
This is what they've actually been. Those are the exercises. It was to take over us. Okay. So this has all happened within the last year. All right. Foreign powers warn their nationals to stay in place. Mike Pompeo, in that 3-minute segment, I really think that we should watch it, even though it's 3 minutes. He goes into how you all are going to be staying in place. Okay. The United States and the Mexican government have worked together to find out that we are closing borders and making sure that people do not travel and they stay in place is actually a hallmark point to having a military coup. That way nobody actually talks to one another, realizes what is going on.
Yes. You know what? That's a really important point. That's okay. So
thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Please talk.
No, that I was saying that's a really important point to separate people so that way they cannot communicate. I mean, obviously they still have the internet, but you can kind of tighten up on that too.
Well, 60% of the internet is fake.
And then there's that.
Okay.
So you can kind of influence the narrative.
Yes, not only that, but there's actually something called coordination theory. Okay, and it's the manipulation of information. It's basically actors stating that something is the truth all together. So you got 60% of actors coming together and saying it is a virus.
Sure.
Okay, we need to close down. You need to get a vaccine. All right. And so people jump onto that because they believe that they're on the winning side. Not necessarily that it's the right side, but the winning side.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And that is what coordination theory is about.
That really is just human nature.
It really is just human nature.
You want to go with the group. Self-preservation.
I don't invest in stocks. Do I still support you? Yes, because I believe for most people, you have a good perspective and good advice on how they can be financially independent. For myself, as you know, I have difficulty giving my personal bank account information to third-party hedge funds. And that is just, that's me. And I lose out on that. Don't get me wrong. I lose by having that principle, but that doesn't mean I don't support anybody who wants to do this, because I want people to be financially independent, however that happens.
There's also more than one way to achieve independence. It doesn't necessarily have to be financially. Like if you have someone who has, I don't know, an income of $20,000, but they can support themselves and they eat their food comes from what they grow and what they take care of. And then you have someone who earns.
Well, that's where I'm at,
You know what I mean? Like
my greatest enemy is Bill Gates. Fuck you, motherfucker. 10% off at mountainmaidentrading.com if you use code fuck you, Bill Gates. Fuck that motherfucker.
And that's a real discount. That's a real code.
Okay. His number one investment is in real property. So you best believe that my number one investment is in real property. And I will be continuing to invest in real property because that is what my enemy is doing. And he far outnumbers me, but man, fuck that dude. Like, fuck
and that's something that's looking real interesting now with his divorce. You know, a lot of that stuff is going to have to be liquidated, and it's just an interesting dynamic. You
It's,
know,
it,
and
you know,
now
so
now the
here we
media is
are.
kind of
Okay,
against.
you've been trading for a while. I
Mhm.
actually was in finance for years. You know, that's how I worked my way through school, was in finance.
Okay.
Okay, so I see it coming, and I'm just looking at it like, you guys, we have two of the richest people in the entire world. I'm just gonna get divorced right now in the middle of a pandemic. Are you motherfucking kidding me? Don't be ridiculously stupid. And this is where we are at in regards to, like, is voluntarism even realistic? Because people do not want to inform themselves, you know?
You know what? I think that it's not realistic for 100% of people to do anything. I
I
don't
agree.
care what it is, but I think that it is realistic to see some growth in the movement, because it's something that either a lot of people still haven't been exposed to, or a lot of people haven't been exposed to properly. The person who
Yes.
introduced me, I was a Obama supporter and a staunch Bernie supporter, and donated to his campaign and all that stuff. And I had a friend, um, his name is Nick, right? And you know, he would drop little. He's been libertarian since he's like a few years older than me. He's been libertarian since forever, since a child. And he would drop little hints and stuff like that. And you know, he wouldn't do, you know, take the traditional libertarian approach of calling me names and stuff. Like, we're genuinely friends. So he wouldn't like try to insult my intelligence or anything like that, but just drop little hints. And I would disregard them, completely disregard them. I was like, I know what I'm talking about. But here's what he did one day. So he's been investing for much longer than myself. And I remember going to him with like some, I think, questions about the stock market. He's always been patient with me about answering those questions. So we sat down. I can't remember if this conversation came before or after. It wasn't even really a conversation, but he came to my job and was like, hey, I want to just drop off a book to you. And if someone if someone recommends a book, especially someone whose, you know, thoughts I appreciate, I'm going to look into it. I'm going to read the book. So he brought this book by Peter Schiff called How an Economy Grows and Why It Crashes, I think is the title.
I have that book.
It's a great book. It's a great introduction to economics. I read that book and was like, okay, so nothing I believe in is like going to actually work. And I'm someone I only care about the information. I do not attach my ego to the information. The information is the information. I don't care who the source is. Like, people can get mad at that all they want to, but if a Klansman can show me how to make $1 million, I'm gonna listen. Now, we're not gonna be friends, but I only care about the information. That's it. And I only care about, I'm serious.
No,
Like,
no, I'm sorry. I totally have Dave Chappelle in my head.
yeah. Oh my God. I hate that skit. That's my least favorite skit. The Clayton
No,
Bigsby.
me too.
The Clayton Bigsby. I remember like everyone loves that skit. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so tough to watch. It's kind of grown on me
Yes.
since, but I remember the first time seeing it being like, this is appalling. But
You're like, yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is a bit much. And I think it was like episode 1. He really just jumped out the window with the,
He really did,
you know.
man.
So he was like, let's set the tone.
I saw him live before, you know, they smeared him. You know,
Sure.
it was
Yeah.
like one of the best
Oh,
shows I've
yeah.
ever been
He's a
to.
legend. But
Yeah, he's a legend.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
no,
I read that book, and I was like, oh man, okay. So I may need to start questioning some things and auditing my beliefs, because they sound good on paper, but will they actually work? I think that if you kind of have to spend some time just kind of auditing your principles and auditing your ideas and thinking they sound good. Okay, will this actually work? You should only care about results. That's why weightlifting and trading, like
Yeah,
weightlifting and
because they're
trading,
tangible.
they're really honest. Weightlifting is honest. Okay, you can either move X amount of pounds, X amount of times, or you
Or
can't.
you can't.
And
That's
and that and then and there's a lot of honesty in that. There's a lot of truth in that, because you can't say, well, the floor wasn't level with the equipment and the blah blah blah. You either can do the movement for X number, or you can't. Your
yes.
trade either worked or it didn't. There's no like it. There's no in between. You know what I mean?
I swear to you, I went into Bitcoin specifically to make it drop. I feel like I've been successful in that endeavor.
So
I'm
okay.
so happy. I knew, I was like, okay, Rachel, the moment that you put this $100 in, you know this shit's gonna crack, because the Illuminati don't like you and they don't want you to succeed.
I guarantee that's why it fell.
No. We all know the reason why Bitcoin dropped is because Rand Paul, no matter how much I hate the dude, he did do something on behalf of the American people. And he did, in a live Senate committee hearing on C-SPAN, ask Fauci about his gain of function funding from the NIH to the Wuhan lab.
I saw that headline and I didn't watch that, but that's really important. I need to check that out.
It's really important. He did that late last week. I can't remember if it was Wednesday or Thursday. And so by Monday, Bitcoin had dropped 50% and Bill Gates is a whore. Okay.
That's random.
No, it's not random. Bill Gates is in partnership with Fauci.
Oh, I see. Got you.
Okay. He is one of the funders for the CDC. Okay, so they do have private partnerships at the CDC, and Bill Gates and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is one of the biggest contributors.
You know what? It's really it's important that you say that, because people need to realize that the CDC, I believe, I'm pretty sure it's just a nonprofit organization that is influenced by its donors. So
correct. No, they even specifically go into private partnership ethics on their website, in which they specifically state that they are getting mutually beneficial outcomes. They specifically state it. It's insane. I don't understand. Like the problem is reading comprehension is so low in this country that when people read something like the COVID-19 vaccinations go through many trials and then watched closely, they don't know that they can go to the Pfizer website and read it specifically tell you that we are in stage 3 trials until 2023.
With you.
With all of us, because it is an airborne. It's airborne.
Can you imagine? Okay. Like, all right. So I know people feel strongly about this, but like, can you imagine taking a vehicle out on the road before it's?
Oh, I know.
Before it's like ready to go.
Oh, you mean how Joe Biden's Secret Service just did that the other day and claimed that it was Joe Biden driving?
I have no idea.
And everybody's like, that was debunked, Rachel. And I was like, that motherfucking shit was not debunked. What are you talking about? They're literally on camera going like, Joe, how did it drive? And it's like, motherfuckers, he is not driving because he is the 3rd generation clone.
Here's the thing that's wild. Here's the thing. The lie was innocent enough, but why though? Like, why? It's just so pointless.
That's the question. Why?
You know that person
he's not driving. You know he's not driving. You also know that whomever is watching that video also knows he's not driving. So what was the point in pretending like he was? I don't know. Have you ever seen the interview with Seth Rogen and James Franco? Okay.
I did. I don't remember all the details, but I remember it being like
that movie is like one of my favorites, right? And they go into detail about how Kim Jong-un does not have an asshole. He does not need to pee or poop. Okay, they say this shit, right?
So
That's
that's
how
why
I
they
feel
wanted.
that clip was. It was literally like, Joe Biden is the most amazing driver ever. And then they pull up with the motherfucker next to him driving it like it's a driver's ed car.
Like, you're not even trying anymore. You're not even trying anymore.
Not even trying anymore. Okay, so here's the thing. All right, when a military coup happens, they seize the media.
Okay, yeah, that
It
makes
is
sense.
something that they do. They say it's the state media that they seize, but that is what journalism has been for, dare I say, 1969. Okay, so I mean, we have The Network that came out in 1974 with him saying, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it anymore." Okay, that's a very famous movie. I was a journalism major before I changed my secondary major to religious studies.
Okay.
I just didn't want to be involved in journalism anymore. I was like, damn, these motherfuckers be lying, you know, and I gotta sleep at
Yeah,
night.
yeah.
Sleep at night. So that didn't happen for me. You know what I'm saying? But they do. They totally seize the media. Okay. And so the content of the speech delivered over the airwaves is of paramount importance. The conspirators do not need to waste time rumbling on about their righteousness. Okay. Instead, they have to hammer home that they've already won. Okay. They've
Mm.
already won the fact you are wrong about your eyes. I am right. I am right all the time. This
Yeah,
is very
when you discredit, like, that's a strong position to take, because I mean,
yes. Okay.
if you can discredit your opposition,
Immediately.
yeah,
Okay.
you
Now we have to bear
half
in
the
mind
battle is won.
that only 6 companies in the
Yep,
United States run all media.
yep.
Even your tiny little town's newspaper is more than likely owned by one of these 6 media conglomerates. Okay. So they've taken over the media. They've told people to stay in place. Okay. So now here we are with another point, people on the streets and gunfire. So they need public unrest. They need to shoot at people. People need to shoot at each other.
Right.
It's a thing that they do to distract. Okay, so it's now the Coliseum, and we need to have this entertainment look this direction.
Right.
Okay, well, we're over here installing our new military regime. Okay, so we see that going on with just the George. I can't even remember his name because he's that unimportant to me. But we've seen it with all of the protests, with the anti-police protests. We've seen it with the quote unquote insurrection of the Capitol.
Was
Okay.
George who? Who were you talking about? The gentleman who was killed by the police officer?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, George Floyd.
George Floyd. Sorry, I can't remember his name. He himself was an actor.
I don't.
Okay. Verified personally by myself as I go on to xnxx.com.
Wait a minute.
Big Floyd. You bet.
Who?
George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Big Floyd on xnxx.com.
That's wild. I have to look at that.
Oh yeah.
But
okay. Not that I watched it, because I'm not into that stuff.
it is what it is.
Like, just to verify, it's him, all right, it's him. All right. So we have all of this going on. Hold on. So the coup itself, okay, thrives off of uncertainty. All right.
Sure.
The CDC says you need to wear a mask. Oh, wait, no, you don't. Oh, wait, the vaccinated can still get you sick. Oh, wait, you don't have to worry about that. Oh, hey, so you know what? Remember how we said last year that everybody died of COVID? Well, this year, some people died with COVID.
5% they dropped the number down to. So it went from
only 5%.
It was like 5%. So
I remember when they first dropped it down to 9%,
so
and then they dropped it again.
It quietly went from something like 500,000 people to 30,000 people who died strictly from COVID and not just with it.
with it. Okay, so we have
Something
to
that
ask
we've been
ourselves
saying for over a year.
over a year. Okay, but they need this confusion and this time to install their military regime. All right, so that leads me to ask, where is the head of state? Okay, because I can share my screen, but we all know that Joe Biden and the White House, particularly these channels on YouTube, okay, okay, so on YouTube, you know, you can like or dislike a video, right? And Joe Biden's dislikes are 5, 6, 7 times more than the likes. He is not a real head of state. He signed, forced how many executive orders on his first day? In his first day of office, you weren't even allowed to watch him be inaugurated. There was a fence and there was military there who were protecting.
He's the most popular president ever.
Okay, so here we are. These are all factors in a military coup. This can be verified just by, and I like to use Google. I like to say Google it because Google censors a ton of shit. So if they're letting you read this information, look at this information, read it, take note of it, take note of the date, and wait a year and see what is new on the Google. When you Google the same exact thing, see what's different. See what is no longer there. That's why I like to use the Google. You just use the Google.
Well, you can watch the narrative shift in real time.
You can watch the narrative shift in real time. And so here's what, okay.
I'll be right back. 1 second.
I'm going to see if I can look up this general, U.S. general talks about Trump.
Pardon me, I had to take care of something. But
yeah, no, that's totally fine. No.
What was I gonna say? I feel like I was gonna say something when you had mentioned. Oh, so I'd made a comparison earlier about you know, people's natural reluctance to wanting to drive a car before it's ready, right? In that same vein, and this is what really did it for me. Now, if you still want the vaccine after this, and more power to you, but what really did it for me was when I discovered that vaccine manufacturers can't even be held legally liable for you know, any negative effects that the vaccine might have on you.
Correct. And let's add to the fact that this is in fact not a vaccine. It's gene modification therapy written by this lady. All right. She is actually the person specifically responsible, for creating the gene modification therapies known as CRISPR. All right. That they are attributing the vaccine technology to. All right. So it's not actually a vaccine. It doesn't come from a protein from COVID because COVID cannot and has not been isolated. Okay. And so it does not come from a protein. It is a gene modification therapy created by one singular scientist. It is known as CRISPR, CRISPR technology. Okay. And in order for this to be approved for emergency use, they actually had to change the definition of vaccine under FDA rules to get this approved.
I was not aware of that.
Yes.
Now,
So
I knew it was like something that was approved for emergency use, but I didn't know that they had to. Good
they
grief.
literally changed the definition of vaccine, very similar to how they changed the rules in HIPAA back in March 2020. So when everybody's crying about this, oh, this violates HIPAA, it doesn't actually, because they changed the rules in March of 2020 very quietly. So they've done all of this. This is all planned. I'm going to put out a reference of Event 201, which is a simulated event about a pandemic that was done in October of 2019. Okay.
Oh,
And
wow.
they've pretty much followed this to a T, which is why I believe that this is, in fact, a military coup. Okay. So the bottom line, the last thing, besides all of the stuff that I've listed, people on the ground shooting, public protests, where is the head of state? Why can't we ever have, like, press conferences with him? Why doesn't he ever exist without his handlers? Why are there fences around the Capitol buildings? Okay. Why is nobody talking about this? Why is the media so confusing? Why is there 60% bots on the internet that was created by DARPA, the Department of Defense? Okay, this is because back in 1969, we had some generals, and guess what? They're still in office today. Our US generals are so old that they have been in office since before the inception of the internet. And so the internet itself is a military exercise. The bots are specifically created by the military to create coordination theory, to convince us that we need to be on their winning side, with a confused and seized media, with a head of state that does not actually exist and is run by very experienced generals.
This right here is a part of the reason
What do you
why
think?
this right here is a part of the reason why, as frustrated as I get when this propaganda works, I get it, because it's so overwhelming.
This is a small piece of the puzzle about what I talk about often, which is the fact that the military itself is actually run by an even smaller committee of people who have been actually running the world for quite some time. Now, I've been continuing to do research on the world and the Constitution. And they say that this is America's greatest export. The Constitution is America's greatest export. 6 countries out of the entire world of 190 countries or so are the only ones that do not have a constitution. Now, a constitution is a contractual agreement, okay, to create a third party entity known as a federal government, okay? This tool is a specifically leftist tool. Without a constitution, these overreaching governments could not exist.
Okay.
Because they are a contract between you and I to create that third party and delegate powers to that entity. And so without that delegation of authority, they wouldn't exist. So a constitution, to me, is the most leftist propaganda tool that a country can use to establish debt slaves. Okay? So we have a small group who is essentially playing Risk in our reality. Okay? And they're nation building, and they're doing this through constitutions, and they're doing it right now. We all know it. Syria, Libya, Yemen, they're doing it This is what they do, and this is what they have been doing for about 200 years that we know of under the terms of the United States of America. Okay. So that being said, a constitution creates a national treasure, like a national treasury, okay, and a federal reserve. It creates a way to create a national monetary system. That national monetary system is borrowed against from foreign entity loans, okay? Other corporations across the world believe in the ability for that citizenry to create that abundance. And so this small group of interrelated people, they call themselves the Illuminati, okay, or the Olympians, the Committee of 300, the they that we're always talking about, okay? So they run all of this. They create an entire society of debt slaves.
I don't think it's any secret to any, I mean, it shouldn't be, that regardless of what their collective name is, it's a very small number of people who
It's a very small
run everything.
They run everything, and they use duping one another, tricking one another into borrowing against one another. Our money is fiat, for example. It is thought to be worth this much by men. Okay, so they believe that the money is worth that, and they invest into the idea that the citizenry is going to produce X amount of tax dollars. Okay, so this group of interrelated people, whoever they are, okay, they use that to build their own personal wealth. They take millions of acres from the citizenry. They tax into oblivion, and they build equipment. They expand on their technological advancements. They do all kinds of things for themselves. And then when the citizenry can no longer take any more, and the money is no longer thought to be useful by other foreign entities, they crash these economies and move on to the next nation that they've built up to make others believe that it would be lucrative to invest in them.
So it's an economical, or rather a global Ponzi scheme.
It's a global Ponzi scheme. It's literally, it's, and this is where I have to give them credit. I give them credit, man. They are like the smartest criminals. Like, go you guys.
You have to respect the villains.
I do, and but they're going after my kids. So like it's on like Donkey Kong. And so that's why I'm here.
Align with them, but you have to like even with
you have to give them mad respect. They're smart. They are intelligent. They in fact are in control of everything. Even when we are trying, part of their goal is to exhaust the liberty-minded with the constant battle of going up against them consistently. They planned for that. Okay. And so the US military going in and destroying the most free country, okay, and the dollar and everything. And this is all going to happen. We know this because you can see the patterns in finance. You can see the patterns in insurance, even. There are certain segments of the economy that give away these secrets before the public knows about it. For example, there are some people in the military who have been instructed that the population will be halved by 2024. Okay.
I can definitely see it decreasing like that. Yes. Yeah, that's inevitable.
Okay, so here we are. So I've done some research on a side note into the Moderna vaccine and some of the ingredients. Some of the ingredients are not for human consumption. One of them is SM-102, and it is suspended in chloroform, which then turns into phosgene gas, which has the most remarkably similar symptoms as COVID-19. And when you are exposed to it in the long term, causes pulmonary edema. or massive heart attacks.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's remarkable how similar the symptoms are. Yeah. So if they've been spraying us with this, it's no doubt that we would have a large segment of the population that can't actually handle the gas with their immune system, that would become sick and possibly die all in a group with one another. And then if you develop a vaccine and convince these people through bot technology that it is imperative for them to take it, and it has the active ingredient. So this eventually turns into SM-102 suspended in chloroform, actually turns into phosgene gas in your system as it breaks down. And just like the smallest amount can cause you to have pulmonary edema. If you make sure that half the population has that, and you tell them that they're in clinical trials, and Bill Gates tells you that they have to wait 2 years to find out what side effects there are, to find out if there's any side effects at all. And it takes 2 years for chloroform to break down in your body from chloroform to phosgene gas. And then we see a second wave of people dying. I only have to ask, who would have the funding to do all of this? And I have to tell you, a military that gets $500 billion every single year without counting for special funding, which is just like off the books, like here you go.
Right. Yeah, that
Okay.
yeah,
And I just want to point out, a lot of people don't know about the budgetary process when it comes to Congress. I just like to lay it out for you guys. I've been writing about it since I was 17 years old, always been fascinated with the budgetary process. They get to make blank checks for all of the departments, just blank checks, no line item vetoes whatsoever, if they don't pass a regular budget. So if they pass a continuing resolution and it funds everything, there's no line item vetoes. They literally just get blank checks. And so they can spend it on whatever they want. And so that has been going on since 2009 with Barack Obama. They have been doing blank checks to their departments through continuing resolutions for over a decade. This is how they have been doing it. So the Constitution itself is fraudulent because it has a lot of legal holes and gaps in it. And so if there was a contract between you and I that had holes and gaps in it, and I tried to tell you, well, you know what, I get to do this because there's nothing in this contract.
It would be void immediately.
It would be void immediately. And thus, that is why people say that the Constitution is useless, but it's not, because in order for us to void the Constitution, there are actually ways to do that in the Constitution.
I'm gonna tell you something.
Yeah.
A piece of paper is only as solid as you're willing to back it up.
So I want to believe that. I want to believe that, okay? But if I were to be arrested and say that I'm a sovereign citizen and I don't back up the Constitution, the judge is going to laugh at me and actually charge me with contempt of court. And I'm going to spend a lot of time in jail just for saying that, not even for the actual charges that I was brought in for. So this is why it's important to me, okay? And this is why I constantly say this message, is because I'm tired of leaving those people to flail and flounder and drown by themselves. We all have an obligation, okay? There's something illegal in contract law called a contract in perpetuity. And that is what they are using to say that the Constitution is still valid and that they can enforce it through their police powers, okay? That's what they're saying. But in all actuality, most courts have ruled that a contract in perpetuity can just be ended on its own because you don't get to do that.
Right.
It's not legal.
Okay? Forever.
Yeah, you can't expect somebody to have a contract in forever for you. So it's just basically there's no sunset clause in there. There's no clause that says this contract is going to end at X amount of time unless we come together and ratify it again. There's no sunset clause. That's basically what that means in contract law for a contract in perpetuity. Okay, but in order to actually void out a contract in perpetuity for real, you would have to go through the fraudulent court systems and prove that the contract is fraudulent. Now, no court system that gains its power from a fraudulent contract is going to say, yeah, that contract is fraudulent.
Come on.
Okay?
Yeah.
Nobody, it's not realistic, right? So
Right.
we all have to come together as the current signatories of the contract. It's a contract in perpetuity for American citizens. We became American citizens at the age of 18. Anybody 18 and older is considered an American citizen legally. Okay. And so we all have that responsibility. We are the signatories, we are the responsible parties to come together and to void out the Constitution. There is nothing in the Constitution that says we cannot void it. That is actually a Supreme Court ruling after the Civil War, in which they interpret the Constitution and actually don't have constitutional authority to do that.
What are you saying it takes to do that?
It takes a simple amendment. All we have to do is state, I have an amendment here somewhere, but it's essentially, we need to void all of the powers delegated to this third party. They are no longer in existence. Their existence is void, which we can do because that's what the contract is. It's a creation of the existence of government. So all we need to do is just void out the existence of government with a sunset clause. And we say at X date, at this time, the government is void. We no longer agree to this contract. It's nullified and void and terminated. And all taxation is null and void. All government property will be given to the people respectively. All of it. And so then people will have acres and they have seed vaults. They have military equipment thousands of years ahead of what we do.
The violence that would ensue.
The violence that would choose violence.
Choose violence. But you would have no choice but to choose violence at that point.
No choice but to choose violence. That is right. Okay. So this is the thing. All right. We are not walking around here uneducated. I don't have one because they did frame my best friend with, a list of people who should probably not be around on the planet anymore. And I'm saying this as nicely as I can. There's a list of people that we could specifically name who have addresses, who are actors in this overthrow of individual freedom that I personally would like to see put on a very, very tiny standing room only, already melting iceberg. All right, very near north to the equator. I don't care if it's, the Florida Keys, it's already melting and it's imperative. Okay, but that I wouldn't mind if it goes off the coast of California or Mexico. I would prefer that because the biggest debtor of America is who? Who is the biggest debtor of American Treasury bonds?
China.
Yeah. Where all of this started.
We've sold here's
the thing, I'm not an absolutist either. Okay. If somebody were to come up to me and tell me you're wrong, all of this is wrong and you're stupid and here's the reason why, and it was a legitimate reason, it wasn't just the Constitution is a social contract and blah 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 blah. If they don't theorize at me when I'm spewing real tangible contract law that applies to every single other contract that you have ever agreed to or written in your entire life, this contract law applies to constitutional law. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you theorize at me about the fucking Constitution, I get belligerent. Like, what are you doing here? Seriously, you are a bot. You're a little itty bitty bot and you need to be smashed. I got my fly swatter right here. It's over. I will not have that discussion anymore because I know I know because I've literally wanted to be a Supreme Court justice since I was 7 years old. Okay. You probably don't know the story, but I walked up to my mom one day, and of course she'd tell me, the American dream, you can be whatever you want. Right. I loved reading. So I was reading so many books. And when I was 7 years old, I walk up to my mom, I go, Mom, I know what I want to be when I grow up. She's like, what do you want to be, honey? And I'm like, I want to be Amish. Yeah.
Okay.
And she was like, nah, it don't work like that. But it
All
do.
right.
Okay, but it do. Okay,
But
so I, so I was like, all right, maybe she's right. I have no idea. So I went on and continued reading. And I've read a ton of books. And so that week I actually read the biographies of this current sitting Supreme Court justices in 1994. All right. And that basically influenced my entire life. And I walked up to my mom the following week. I said, Mom, I know what I want to be when I grow up. And she's like, what do you want to be, honey? And I said, I want to be a Supreme Court justice. And I want to give people as much freedom as I can. She's like, you go for it, honey. And then, I grew up and I got potty trained. And I realized, I was a dumb child, but that is not how the Supreme Court works at all. But I have extensive knowledge about how the Supreme Court works, about the case law that they've built, the precedent that they've built, their unconstitutional edicts, the way that they function in and of itself is completely unconstitutional. All of their precedent is done through their rule of judicial review, which is their ability to interpret the law and create it from the bench. Okay. This power is nowhere in the Constitution. If you were to Google, is judicial review in the Constitution, you would find no. In fact, it is not in the Constitution. This is a unilaterally granted power from SCOTUS to SCOTUS in the case Marbury v. Madison, all the way back in 1803. Okay, so they have been creating law extra constitutionally since 1803. And it's really important that we understand this so that we understand how fraudulent the Constitution actually is. We are the signatories of the Constitution. The government is a creation of it. They are not a signatory of the Constitution. Therefore, they do not have to follow any of the guidelines in the Constitution whatsoever. And they amply and aptly prove that so. Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree, but you're talking to a population that wants to be controlled.
I'm talking to a population that's 60% bots. No, I don't know. I'm talking to, this, you have to understand, I've realized that the world is fraudulent. Not just America, not just our Constitution, all governments, all constitutions, everything that we see is in fact mostly not real. And when you see this through the study of the internet, in which 60% of internet activity is done through bots, you have to remember when you're arguing with a stranger, you don't, but when I'm arguing with a stranger online, I have to wonder if it's a bot. When I come out in January and I tell people, this looks like historically like a military coup, and everybody tells me to sit down and shut the fuck up, and they're in the anarchist community and they worked for the military, and that is something that they admit and are proud of, and they say this, and then they tell me to sit down, shut up, just go to my compound and wait it all out because there's nothing I can do. I have to ask if they themselves are a bot. How many people who claim to be in the liberty movement are in fact bots, or worse,
or
agree, or plants who actually agree? And so this is why we are so splintered. It's not so much that I want to control other anarchists. I certainly don't.
Right.
But most people hate me because I speak so honestly and truthfully, and do have maybe even an unhealthy amount of skepticism in my life. but that is because I have been exposed to other psychopaths, people who are working as plants, people who are bots, people who do believe in eugenics, people who are in positions of power, who do want to cull the American and world populace at large. I've seen this firsthand, so I can't exactly say, I would be lying to myself if I said that this isn't a possibility. And the more that I look at it and the more research I do, even from their preferred media outlets, the more I am convinced, I am there, that the winning side is actually for freedom. I believe that the winning side is freedom.
Okay.
It holds a majority of people. We have
Okay.
to consider, we have to consider that even if you were to think every single Democrat who voted for Biden truly did believe in a one world government and domination and everything like that, okay? 46% of people on average do not vote at all, meaning that 50% of 50% is only 25% of the whole population. And a vast majority of us are actually quite aware of at least usurpations going on by the government and the media and actors and etc. There are people at the top who are usurping our rights, whether we have a full handle on all of that or not. Okay, we are all on our different part of this path of liberty. That's why Literacy to Liberty was created, because I realized, I needed a positive outlet after writing my book. I was heinously attacked by other anarchists, and I got pissed off. I was like, why would you attack me for figuring out the actual solution, like a very tangible solution to getting rid of government? This
like
is
attack
disturbing.
online or in person?
Attack me, both. So I was like, why would you be upset about this? This is literally just problem solving in a 54-page book. That's it. And so my book was actually geared towards Republicans who were disenfranchised and were like, whoa, something crazy is happening here. I've never fucking seen this in my life. And that was me being like, well, here, let me show you some information that may help you understand to how we got here today. Okay. And do I claim to have all of the answers to this? No, but it is a very succinct and very easily readable timeline of how the US government has instilled a medical tyranny over all of us. Okay. And it goes into Supreme Court historical case law. And then it continues to delve into legislative practices done at the state level, okay, that have actually been unconstitutional at the state level, that have allowed governors unilateral control. Okay, so there's a book that we've been delving into a little bit, and I haven't read it, and I was just thinking about how I need to do another reading time. The Conspirators' Hierarchy.
I haven't even heard of that.
It is a book written in 1991 by a man named Dr. John Coleman, who experienced the Illuminati. Okay, he is a foreign relations analyst in the military, retired, probably dead now.
Yeah.
Okay, who wrote about the group that is controlling all of us. Okay, so the group that's controlling the military coup that we're in right now.
So did you read it?
Heck yeah. I have reading nights. So there's a misnomer out there that Literacy to Liberty is a podcast. It is in fact not a podcast. Literacy to Liberty is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educational philanthropy, i.e., we're dedicated to the free services in education and learning services.
Okay.
Okay, I am not just a podcast. So this introductory series is actually to get other people involved with the library services. I hope to eventually have a large, freely accessible digital library of information that people can read. I have a reading list for people to read, and every other, week or so, I try and do readings, okay, from that reading list. So we have this, and then I also have roundtable open discussions just to try and grow the community a little bit, because we have been so isolated from one another over the past year, that it really has splintered the community. And I don't think I'm alone. And I don't want you to think that you're alone, or
Right.
anybody else to think that they're alone, because in doing this series, I've actually been very enlightened by the fact that not only do I have a lot in common with people who are liberty minded, but also spiritually, and how we've gotten this message that we are a divine source, and they are infringing on our ability to hear and decipher and act on behalf of our divine voice, what is inside of us that guides us, our soul, whatever
Well,
people want to call it,
yeah.
you
And
know?
that's something that's been deliberately suppressed, I feel, to kind of
This
dumb
book,
down.
this book goes into a delightful list of all of the plan of action for the Committee of 300, talking about how they will cause pandemics, they will cause unemployment, they will cause heroin addiction, they will cause unrest and weather modification. They talk about all of it in this book. And he's either an incredible soothsayer, okay, to be talking about something that's happening now, all the way back in 1991, or he was aware of this group of people who actually have historical records that you can find. So my friend Tracy, he's eclectic. I love him so much, but people either love him or hate him, okay, because he is brutally honest. And one of the things that I admire about him immensely is his ability to research. He can research so much. He actually has a passion specifically for going into libraries and looking in their online archives of newspapers. So he looks in newspapers from like the 1930s, the 1940s, all the way back to, like, I've seen him do the 1890s. And he sends me these PDFs of this stuff where it literally discusses like meeting minutes for the Committee of 300. Okay, so these are plans that they've had in place, nary I say it, for at least 10,000 years.
Okay, you're okay.
Yep.
That's crazy.
It is absolutely mind-boggling. Most people are not ready for that, but I'm more of, a lot of people think that education is about reading about our reality that these people have created. Okay, so our political reality, our social reality, economic reality, they've created all of those things. Okay, and they have convinced us that education is about reading about those things. But really, education is in learning about how they have used all of this to control everybody. That's where my education is. So I'm more about rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
This is what's going on. And then, put the pieces together yourself. Put it together. You can put it together, man. Anybody can put it together. I fully believe that. That's why I keep having these discussions with people, in any way that I can, and any time that I can, because it's so important for us to realize, like, hey, we're all actually getting the same message.
And it's important. I had spoken on this before, but I want to revisit it. It's important to expose people to different perspectives, because one of those perspectives is gonna click. It might click with you.
Yes. Okay. So in political theory, there's something called the marketplace of ideas.
Mhm.
Okay, where if you are really actually open to being a free society, you must be open to hearing everybody's perspective,
Mhm.
i.e., this is the marketplace to pick and pluck your, ripe ideas from other people. This is the whole reason why books were invented in the first place, is so that we could communicate what's going on in our mind with somebody else in the form of a book, okay, that they could then interpret with their own mind. This is the invention of all entertainment, you know? Um, so if we take that away, all right, so I have a massive background in public speaking. I started doing public speaking when I was in high school at a pretty young age. I was 14 years old. I made varsity the first time I went out, and I had to speak in front of 4,500 people the first time that I was ever doing public speaking. So again, Band-Aid ripped right off.
Yeah.
I actually was a 2-time state competitor in high school. And then in college, I went on to create my university's pre-law society. And then underneath that umbrella, I created our first ever debate team. It was a mock trial team. That team placed first in its inception year, and I garnered a full ride scholarship to law school for myself, as well as partial law school scholarships for several of my other friends. I chose not to go to law school because I was disenchanted with the process, with the whole fraud, so I chose not to go. I'm super happy about that, but that doesn't negate my knowledge in law. I actually still know more about law than some lawyers practicing. So, like, for example, my town right now, the city hall and the chamber of commerce is both telling and directing small businesses, their lawyers included, that they can discriminate against people who are not vaccinated and are not wearing masks. Now, this is true in Mississippi. This is true in North Carolina. This is true in California. It's true in Texas. It's true in Florida. It's true in Washington. I basically have not seen any state that it's not true in, except for Colorado. Colorado has a very accommodating public accommodations law. Okay. So these are, if you're open to the public for business, essentially, okay, you have to accommodate the public, and you cannot discriminate against them based off of race or gender, religion, etc. But Colorado here is very unique and interesting because we include somebody's creed in our public accommodations law, not religion. A lot of states just state religion. Colorado does not. It states someone's creed. Now, our public accommodations law does not actually have a definition for creed in that actual act, but the Secretary of State's anti-discrimination employment laws do. And those anti-discrimination employment laws state that creed is somebody's religion or moral or ethical beliefs that they hold sincerely that determine one's behavior.
There you go.
Okay, so here in Colorado, they actually cannot discriminate against you for not wearing a mask or not being vaccinated because it goes against discriminating against somebody's creed.
Mhm.
Now, to further that, I spoke to my own lawyer who told me that I will be held liable for discriminating against somebody for this in Colorado because our governor has lifted all of the emergency mandates. So while the emergency mandates were in place, technically it would be very difficult to prove discrimination. But now that the mandates have been lifted, public accommodation laws go back into play. And so a lawyer has told me, yes, you can be liable for that. Well, I know a lot of people in insurance, so I call them up too. And I talk to them and they tell me, your insurance isn't going to cover a willful discrimination lawsuit. So if you do discriminate, you can be held liable and your insurance will not cover it. And they are going around here in town hall and at the Chamber of Commerce, these lawyers who are practicing and telling people lies. Now, Governor Polis has already shut down small businesses. He literally crippled them here in the state, and we all know that that happened all across the country.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this just seems like another, under the table attempt at destroying small business for fascism, medical tyranny. You are telling them that they can discriminate, you know that they cannot, and you are going to cripple them in lawsuits. It is brilliant. It's brilliant. But I know as a small business owner to be much more cautious and to really look at whether these edicts are actually true or not, so I can protect myself because I have the ability to inform myself. But here we are, in a country where people don't want to be informed. And so this is where I get to the point. I just have to wait 2 years.
Yeah.
I just got to wait 2 years because the people that don't agree with me are more than likely going to be dead of phosgene toxicity.
Maybe, maybe not,
Maybe,
but
maybe not.
we won't know for some time. That's
right.
Like
and you're right in regards to not 100% of human beings are ever going to be in agreement with one another. Maybe they would. Maybe they would.
Growth potential though, because not enough people have heard the message.
Correct. Absolutely.
So whatever percentage we're at now, there's growth potential for it to be higher.
There's growth potential. And unfortunately, I do believe that a lot of people are going to die. And a lot of those people are actually people who don't want to hear this message. But as we continue to move in this direction, if people were to realize how much damage the Constitution has done as a document to freedom and individuality in the world, and we actually all came together. North Korea has a constitution, for example. Okay? If we all came together and voided that out, now what is the Constitution? It's the creation of a debt fiat system to actually move debt into real property. Okay, so if we were to confiscate this real property, human beings would be living in generational abundance. Our future abundance has been created right now in real time. We have $26 trillion in future abundance, AKA debt. That future abundance has been transferred into real property. Acres, seed vaults, military equipment.
Okay.
Okay. All right. If we did that all across the world, human beings would realize we don't ever need government again. And we are well taken care of because they have created our future abundance. They've brought that into reality right now. So everybody's pushing and clawing to work. Oh, I need to survive. That would disappear because we have created our future abundance right now for everybody to live off of for however long. And once we all come together and realize that this is what is happening, this is verifiable evidence, you can go look it up yourselves. We could actually come together, not just to survive, but to thrive. We could have a period of what I term rapid enlightenment. Enlightenment. Because we're not just surviving, we're thriving. And we did it together.
While I can, and I have to go soon, but
me too.
While I can appreciate that approach, I take the stance that no matter how noble the idea, any idea that begins with if we all just, is far-fetched. It's far-fetched.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're not all going to do anything.
I know. So the amendment process only requires 2/3 of a vote. We only need 2/3 of us. I mean, I'm being like optimistic when I say all, but we really only need 2/3.
My focus is what can I control?
What can I control? So this is what I can control. I can control the information that I present to other people in the hopes that they understand it and that they see my message clearly and that they feel compelled to go and research on their own. That's what I hope.
You can control your response to this world. You can control your own habits, and how you choose to raise your family, and to a degree, your own health.
Yes.
You know,
So
and I
we
think that's
we
really
live in
important.
a dysfunctional world,
Sure.
right? We
Yes.
live in dysfunctional health, dysfunctional information. Just everything is so dysfunctional.
Yep.
The best thing that we can all do for ourselves is to be productive in our dysfunctional environment.
I agree.
Awesome. And that is how we gain our personal liberty, right? Through
Yeah,
personal function.
there's, like I said before, there's freedom found in trying to determine your own outcome.
Yes.
You know,
For me, I found freedom in my failures.
mm,
Okay. When I fail at something, I look at it's like what Thomas Edison said, and I'm not a big fan. Okay, so don't look at the source, just look at the information.
right.
No, yeah.
Come on, like, yeah, right. If it's
Okay,
info, it's valid info.
all
Yeah.
right. It took him 1,000 times to figure out the wrong way to make a light bulb, and only one way to figure out the right way. That's it. That's all it takes. And so your failures are all lessons. And
They
so
are.
the idea is to continue to be productive, continue pushing yourself to be 200 pounds instead of 196, right? Make sure that your arms fill out your sleeves.
You gotta have goals. You gotta have goals. But to your point, failure, and failure is like a feedback loop.
Yeah, it
It'll
is.
show you what's wrong
That's
if you're
right.
paying attention. Like,
Yeah.
this didn't work, let me try this. This
Yes.
didn't work, let me try this.
Yes.
And the same for when you find the right path. It's like, okay, well, this is working. Let me
So
keep doing this or modify it.
as a chef, when I do that, right, when I find out the right way to do something, I
Mhm.
I think to myself, what are other paths I can take to make this better? I'm always trying to improve.
But here's the thing. You're not going to change something for the sake of changing it.
Right.
And I think that's
I'm gonna
another
change it because it
that's
makes
a
it
whole
better.
that's a whole nother point where, like, uh that's a whole nother point where progress for the sake of progress is regressive. Like,
That's
not
right.
everything has to just be changed just because, like,
And
uh
this, my dear, is why I still make my grandmother's sugar cookie recipes
perfect.
verbatim, exactly, because there is no way to improve upon that, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So, hey, real quick here at the end, because I
Yeah.
usually do open this up.
Okay.
Does anybody else here have any questions that they'd like to ask Danny, whether that's in the chat for me to ask him or whether you want to unmute yourself? Otherwise, Danny, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much here today. I loved your input. I love just being able to sit and chat and get to know you a little bit. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. And I feel like there should be a follow-up at some point, because there's some things I wanted to touch on that we didn't get a chance to touch on.
We can totally do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do have a few other lectures that are coming
Okay.
up, but
Okay.
dude, yeah, let's plan for this in like September. And
Okay.
let's see
Sounds
where we
good.
are. Yeah,
That
I'm
sounds
totally
good.
down to do that. All right. So for everybody else who was on here, go to Black Pegasus Group.
Yes.
Get your
Join
trade on.
blackpegasus.com.
Yes. And even if you are not a trader, I am not a trader like myself. I don't do that. Even if you're not trading, it's still really good information. Being able to decipher the market really is a language in and of itself that gives you an idea of the future economic impacts that the people who are in charge are planning to put upon us within the foreseeable future. So it's still really, really important to do that, even if you
There's
yourself don't trade.
there's a lot of truth in you can really make sense of the world when you follow the money.
Follow the money. I'm going to leave everybody with that.
Yeah.
Danny, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I'll
Thank
let
you.
you know when this is up on YouTube.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Bye. Have a good
Bye-bye.
Saturday.
You too.